Okay, we are live. This is Sean from 8-Bit Shinobi, and we're here with our legendary guest, Robert Bocksteal.
Thanks, Sean. It's great to be here again. It's good to see you, man.
Thanks for coming back on. I thought it would be a great idea to have you on with the release of the new Robocop game. I thought it would be a great idea because you're the voice of Robocop, and it would be a great, plan to get some exposure for your book and get everyone to know about that animated series you're on. You wrote a really amazing book called Willow's Run, which also had an amazing cop character in it. You've done other cops too. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your book?
Well, thanks, John. The book Willow's Run is I would call it's a cinematic thriller. It's doing really well. The reviews are fabulous. It's available worldwide on all platforms. Yeah, I've got it. It's in the hands of a couple of film producers and a couple of directors. Who knows what'll happen?
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But it's in the briefest of ways, it's a woman who's on the run from her psychotic husband. She's an ex Olympic volleyball player of world renown, who, after a series of really bad, horrible injuries, has had to leave the profession. And she's been battling these drug addictions and stuff that were as a result of her various surgeries and stuff. But she's on the run, and she ends up basically crashing this vehicle in a small kind of half abandoned, half forgotten tourist town in northern New York, where she eventually hides out with the help of some of the locals on this kind of spooky, almost an abandoned hunting lodge on this island. And it's there that she discovers a lot of secrets about the town that a lot of people wish she hadn't. So it's an adventure on a series of levels. This ex-husband is coming after her. She uncovers this murder, and adventures ensue. And it all takes place. The whole book takes place during a 1-week-long rainstorm.
Yeah, it's a very good book. I highly recommend it. It's on sale, I believe. And if you're getting it on Audible, it's a treat because Robert is amazing at voice acting. So you can have Robocop himself reading it to you.
Yeah, I narrated it. And if there's anybody who understands the book, it's me. So, I've gotten some really good feedback from the Audible version of it. There's a fellow who messaged me from Portugal, who said that he listens to audiobooks all the time. It's one of his favorite things to do because he has to travel a lot. And he messaged me and said, I want to ask you a favor. I listened to your book and I really loved it. But I want you to narrate all books from now on. It's a big ask.
I've always wanted to go to Portugal. That's where my family's from.
Is that right? Well,
yeah.
I was there. I stayed there for a couple of months at one point with my family, and it's an extraordinary, beautiful country. Really is amazing, and it's one of the it is. I think I may be wrong. Your viewers can correct me on this, but as if memory serves, the Portuguese border is the oldest intact border in Europe. Of all of the the changes in borders that have happened over the centuries, right, with wars and all of that kind of stuff, Portugal's border has remained intact. The border between Portugal and Spain, it's been exactly the same.
That's a fun fact.
Yeah, fun fact. It is a remarkable country, very different from any that I've been to.
Yeah, my other half is from Trinidad, my dad's side.
Hmm.
So I'm from everywhere, and my kids are even more so.
Well, that's good. That's great. We are all citizens of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you tell me a bit about the show, the animated series RoboCop that you worked on?
Well, it's quite a long time ago now. That was for Marvel, and in the early days when Marvel really they weren't into live action at all. It was all animated stuff that they were doing, and this was early Marvel. Um, so I ended up working as a result of getting the RoboCop role. I ended up working with Marvel on several other projects as well, like the Silver Surfer and the X-Men and things like that. But uh, RoboCop was the first one, and I'll never forget. I'd gone in to do the audition. I was doing quite a bit of voiceovers, quite a bit of cartoon work at that point. I had just finished The Adventures of Teddy Ruxpin, and we'd done 65 episodes of that, and I think I'd played like 12 characters. So I was all warmed up. I was ready to go. All my different voices were all in place. And I went in to do this audition. I don't specifically remember the audition because there's been so many of them over the years, but I imagine that I probably gave a few different voices, different characterizations. And I remember I was going down to the subway, like this was a long time ago, it's before cell phones. I was going down to the subway, and I decided to call my agent on a whim to see if she had heard about anything, to do with the audition I had given the day before. And I called her. I found a payphone, and I called her from the payphone. And she said, "Oh, yeah, great news. They want you to play the principal role. They want you to play RoboCop. So you're hired. We're signing the contract." There wasn't much in the way of negotiation to do, so it was a good offer. So we took it. And I remember going down to the subway platform, and I was standing there all by myself. And I was so happy that I wanted to just kind of jump up in the air and do fist pumps and all of that kind of stuff. But I knew there were security cameras, and I was all alone. And I thought, no, I was just too self-conscious. In retrospect, I should have done it. It would have been a great way. But I remember being so full of joy and happiness that I had landed this role. It's funny because, after I've been an actor since I was 20. So it's been, 40 years. In all those 40 years, I don't know that I was ever quite so happy to get something. And don't ask me why, because I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I knew who RoboCop was.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the original film with Peter Weller, who I later worked with on Odyssey 5. And
The two RoboCops meet.
Yeah,
Multiverse.
Well, when we shook hands, I said, "Well, we better be careful. Maybe we shouldn't touch each other. We could cancel each other out." But he was pretty chuffed to have met the guy who played the animated version. And of course, I was honored to meet him. I've always thought he was a great actor anyway. So going into the studio was a lot of fun. I mean, the first day going into any new situation like that is always a little bit nerve-wracking. And I was a little intimidated because there were a whole bunch of other voice actors in that studio who I really admired. And, they were older than me and they had chops. They all knew each other really well. So I was a little bit new kid on the block, and we were doing it as almost as a radio drama. So there were all of us in the room with microphones at the same time. They don't really do that much anymore. I don't even know if they do it at all anymore. But so it was pretty interesting. You would practice, you'd rehearse the scene a number of times, and then they would record it. And if they needed to pick up lines, you would just record individual lines after that. But the director, Stu Rosen, who recently just passed away, he said to me, okay, I liked your audition, but it was your voice that I wanted. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, when you went in and said, hello, my name's Robert Bocksteal. I said, yeah. He said, that's the voice I want. I don't want you to put on any phony voices, right? Don't give me any of this. He said, don't do any of that stuff. I just want you to be you. I'm like, really? He said, yes, but just flatten it out so that it sounds as if not a robot, but just a little less kind of variety in your delivery. Because when we do talk, we have a nice modulation, and we go up and down with our voices. And he said, just flatten that out a little bit. He said, there's still a little bit of human left in him. Okay. So, drop your weapons, you're under arrest, instead of drop your weapons, you're under, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, God, this has got to be the easiest gig ever. I'm just using my own voice. And then they treated it a little bit, so it sounded like I was in a tin can, the helmet thing. And that was that. So it was not a strain on my voice like a lot of other characterizations can be. But along the line, what was fun was that instead of having all these interminable casting sessions to bring other actors in to play, the guy who crosses the street and drops his groceries in the middle of a chase scene and goes, hey, look out, rather than having a casting session for all of those ancillary characters, we auditioned for them on the spot. So you had all the actors that were the regular characters, and Stu would say, okay, we've got this guy, and he's in the elevator there, and the elevator starts falling down, and he's got a line here saying, what do we do? What do we do? We're all going to die. So I want everybody to try that, and I'm going to decide who's going to do it. So everybody did an audition right on the spot, and he'd go, okay, you got it. Let's do it. And we would record it, and you would get paid a substantial amount of money to do that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You had to get paid for every character you played. I can't remember. We used to call them something like 109ers or something. I think it was $109 plus the buyout. So it was like $218 or something. Added on to your daily fee.
Oh, that's great.
Which was already really good. Oh, yeah, it was really great. I mean, we're talking the early 80s here. I mean, that was rent. You know what I mean? So it was fantastic. So I loved those. I loved picking one or two of those up every episode, if you could. That was a real treat. It was very enjoyable. And the cast ended up being, we didn't become best friends or anything, but when we all arrived for a recording session in the studio, everybody was happy to see everybody else.
Oh, that's good.
It was all very pleasant and very supportive, and there was no backstabbing or anything. That can happen on some of the larger projects, but it didn't happen on Robocop. So my memories of it are all very fond memories. Yeah.
Did you do any preparations for the role? Because when I went back and I watched it, I'm like, that sounds exactly like Peter Weller in the first movie.
Isn't that interesting? Well, maybe what they did maybe they hired me because I could have a similar sounding voice. I certainly did not go out with the intention of impersonating Peter Weller. I just went out to do my own take on it, and I guess Stu Rosen thought, yeah, that's what I want. I think it was Stu. Must have been Stu. Anyway, yeah. So preparations, no. In those days, I didn't do preparations for anything. I was a hardworking actor. I was a very busy actor, but I was also self-taught. So I had my kind of own way of doing things, and I didn't do kind of vocal warm-ups or any of that kind of stuff because I wasn't trained to do all of that stuff. I was just a working stiff,
Did you have a favorite episode that you worked on that you're like proud of, or that you can
You
think
know,
of?
frankly, I can't honestly remember. Most of the stuff that was saying was drop your weapons, you're under arrest. And uh, no, there was no, I couldn't, I could honestly not tell you what my favorite episode would be.
Too many, too many.
Yeah, too many, and too many hundreds and hundreds of different episodes of other things between now and then too. You know, the mind gets cloudy with all of those. I mean, if I suppose if I went back and watched any of them, I might go, "Oh yeah, I remember that one. That was a fun one to work on." You know, but RoboCop, you know, he's pretty straightforward most of the time. It's not like he's there telling jokes. You know,
Mhm.
so. I mean, I think there were a couple of emotional moments with his partner, um, but then most of the emotion would have come from her, right? Uh,
Right.
so his reaction would have been usually pretty straightforward, like maybe a hint that he understood what was going on, but he couldn't express it
Right.
because, well, he's a robot mainly, right? So, yeah, I don't know. So there you go.
Yeah. Do you have any favorite shows that you've worked on? Or
Yeah, I mean, in terms of animated or in terms of just everything?
we'll start with animated.
Animated. Well, for all those reasons that I mentioned earlier, RoboCop stands out for me as being a real, you know, an early kind of very positive experience. Um, the I did a lot of kind of small stuff for Atkinson Film Arts, Crawley Films, and that's kind of where I got my start. There were little specials like Rumpelstiltskin and you know Dennis the Menace and things like that
Mhm.
that were done locally in Ottawa, as a matter of fact.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yeah, and then when I moved to Toronto and started doing voice work there. Um, I mean, I even came back up to Ottawa where we recorded The Adventures of Teddy Ruxpin. They flew people in from all over North America to record there. And that was a lot of fun. I don't think I've ever laughed so hard in my life, honestly. We had such a riot uh, recording that series. Um, it was phenomenal. An amazing cast of actors who were all having a really marvelous time with fun material, you know.
Yeah, I still have the book. I gave it to my daughter, and
Oh, is that right?
yeah, she has the new one where where because the lights are LED, it can make heart signs and different things for the emotions.
Okay, cool, cool, nice.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that was a fun experience. It was early on, but later experiences. I mean, I think I really quite enjoyed a series called Monster Force. Um, and it was a short-lived but fun series where I played two of the main characters. I played, I think, the mummy and a Dracula character. But I blew my voice out doing it. It was really hard on the voice. Yeah, yeah, that was a tough one, but it was fun to do. Again, some really great heavyweight talent uh, in the studio. Um, there was something called Friends and something or other. Uh, and geez, I can't remember the title of it because we had a working title, I think, when we were in the studio. Uh, but I played this kind of um, Scarlet Pimpernel character who was, you know, rescuing people and spiriting them away through the tunnels of Paris and stuff. And he was, you know, by day he was this kind of mild mannered aristocrat, and by night he was this heroic kind of savior of the downtrodden. And it was an enormous amount of fun. There were some, scenes out of famous swashbuckling movies and, all that kind of stuff. So that was enjoyable. But the weird thing, I worked with Marvel subsequently, like I said before, X-Men and Silver Surfer. And the weird thing about that was that you were basically in the studio by yourself. And you had your headphones on and you were listening to what was going on the other characters may have been in to record parts of the scene. You had the script in front of you and you have the director in a booth directly in front of you and you're doing your part. And I think they do a lot of stuff that way now, mostly. But I didn't care for that experience as much. I found it very difficult. It wasn't as kind of a supportive and enjoyable experience. It was work. It was good work.
And you also feed off of each other too when you're in a group.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of actors who will always prefer to work in the theater than to work on film, because they find the theater experience to be one that is, you're feeding off of other people, you're getting energy from other people, you're getting energy from the audience, and it's this big kind of event amongst people, right? That kind of elevates itself. It's a fascinating experience, and a lot of actors really, they flourish in that environment, and that's the one they will prefer, because we're acting on film is very different from that. It's very rare that you're going to be in an environment like that, unless maybe if you're in a small ensemble comedy like, Seinfeld or Friends or something, where you've got basically that core group of people that you're constantly interacting with. And that kind of raises the level. Big Bang Theory was a good one for that as well. But it's a very different kind of work, very different. And some people, they either gravitate towards one or the other. In Britain, of course, you've got a lot more crossover. But in North America, it seems to be one or the other. So I kind of felt that way about the old days in cartoons, where we were a lot more often where there were groups of us in the studio. I think the first time I experienced was when I did Sailor Moon. Was when I would be called in and I walked into the studio. There was nobody else there, and I was like, "What's up with this?" So not to say it was a bad experience at all. It was very good. It was a very positive experience, but it was different.
So why don't you tell me where our guests can get your book and any other projects that you're working on at the moment?
Okay. Well, Sean, thank you. My book, Willow's Run, I keep pointing that way. There it is. It's there over my shoulder. It's available worldwide in all formats. So you can get the soft cover, the paperback, I guess we call it. You could get a hardback cover version of it. You can get the large print version for your grandparents, or if you have trouble with your vision, there's a large print version of it. You can get the ebook version of it for your tablet. And you can also get the audiobook version of it. And I swear it's on multiple platforms around the world. If you type in that title, if you want to type in my name along with the title, you're going to get even more results. It's freaking everywhere, honestly. Or you can go to my website, robertbocksteal.com.
Links in the description.
Okay, perfect. robertbocksteal.com, and there are a bunch of clean links on the website that will take you to various places. You can get it on Amazon, you'll get it the next day kind of thing, right? And interestingly enough, they pay me the best royalties.
That's great.
Yeah. So, and I know a lot of people have a bugaboo about buying books on Amazon, but honestly, they do pay the the authors the most amount of money. Unlike a bookstore, which can't afford to pay me very much at all.
And I feel like it's also hassle-free too with Amazon.
It is hassle-free, and if you want to send the book back, you can send the book back. You know what I mean? The other hassle-free way is that go to your local library. It's certainly it's in libraries across Canada. Not every library. There are it's about 75 libraries that have picked it up. Major ones like the Toronto Public Library System. The Ottawa Public Library System, I think they have 10 copies of various formats available, because there's 33 branches. They're not going to get a book for every branch, right? They circulate. Right. So, and if you want one for your library, or if you don't want to buy the book, just go to your library, and there is a form, even an online form, you can fill out requesting they purchase the book, and they will. I mean, if you ask for it, they get it. So that's good too, because that way, it makes the book available for lots of other people, and the library only has to pay for it once.
Mm-hmm. And if you really enjoy it, you can purchase it for yourself.
Yeah, and Christmas is coming. Books make a really, really good Christmas gift. And for your reluctant reader in your family or your friends, people who haven't read maybe a lot over the years, this is the book to get them back into reading. It really is very, very accessible. It's a lot of fun to read. It moves forward like a freight train, and there is something for everybody in it. So that's Willow's Run. I've written 2 more books since then. I'm on the 3rd draft of one of the books, and the next book has been calling me, so I've been working on that one. I put the other one; it's sitting over there, glowering at me. But the current book I'm writing now, I'm still wrapping it up. It's going slowly but surely. It's a long process, Sean. It's, Willow's Run from inception to publication was 9 years. So it's not it's not a fast kind of process for most people. There are a few writers out there that write very quickly, but I'm not one of them.
I used to back in the day, but there's so much stuff to do with.
Yeah. That life does get in the way, doesn't it? And then you've got kids, right?
Yeah. And we have a birthday party Saturday, and the little girl's name is Willow.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Yeah, we were friends. We worked together, and then we both had kids at the same time, so they became best friends. So we're there all the time, and there's always some sort of kid coming over in our house. You probably know that. Like this little girl, she just lives down the road. She comes over. We have everyone's cousin. All of our cousins are the same age, so Perfect. It's like a zoo here.
But in a good way.
Yeah.
They're eating all your food, of course, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's wonderful, Sean. That's terrific.
Well, everyone, make sure to check out Willow's Run. You will not regret it. I like to broaden my horizon. So if it's not on your radar, it's not your genre, just give it a try.
It is. That's the thing. I mean, you read a chapter, and you will get to the next chapter, and there's going to be something in there for you. Even if a lot of people have written me saying, I don't normally read thrillers. I don't normally read. And the only complaints that I've gotten so far have been that this book has made someone late for work. So, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy about that.
Well, thanks for coming on, and hope everything goes well. Are you doing any conventions this year or next year that you know?
Nothing coming up. Nothing coming up immediately on the horizon. Likely, hopefully I'll be invited to the Deep River Geek Fest again, because I really like that event. Um, but otherwise, I haven't really planned anything concrete at this point. But I'm always open. So
Yeah, and you could check out Robert's website. It'll probably have the information, or if you type up his name, it'll probably tell you where he's going.
yeah, there'll be something out there anyway. And I've got a Robert Bocksteal author page on Facebook as well.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Sean. The same, very much the same.
Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.